With us now, Bakari Sellers, trained and political commentator, and Matt Mowers. He is a former Trump administration official and president of Valcor Global Public Strategy. And friends, I want to put up stock futures because the markets did not like this report, reacted very sharply. We can see, I think, hopefully soon. There we go. Wild swings downward. The Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P, all down more than 1%. They were up a little bit yesterday on the whole tariff back and forth, but for the week, Bakari, they are way down. And I just want your view on what the economic environment is and the political implications that might have.
I mean, I think that the word of the day has to be uncertainty, John. I mean, the economic future of this country is deemed to be uncertain. When you look at these numbers, there's no economic indicator that shows that we are actually in the midst of a healthy or growing economy. Whether or not you're looking at job numbers, whether or not you're looking at wage numbers, whether or not you're looking at the stock market, there is nothing this president or Elon Musk or the House or Senate have done which actually show that economically we're on solid footing. I mean, and that's just a fact. Regardless of who comes on here, what panelist comes on here, what member of Congress comes on here, they can't point to one economic indicator that says that this economy is growing or going in the right direction. And again, this is what voters voted for. They voted for this level of uncertainty, and this is what we have.
Matt, to an extent, the administration is leaning into policies that could potentially exacerbate some of the numbers you are seeing now. How do you feel about that?
Well, look, you just peel through that report you just talked about. I think when you actually break it down and you tell the American people that nearly 40% of the jobs came from government jobs, taxpayer-funded jobs that are now being eliminated, most Americans, I understand in Washington, D.C. and some places that are going to be more impacted, that it's going to be a slightly different political calculation, but most Americans across the country are going to say it's about time. I mean, look, you've had an ever growth in the expansion of the federal government. You know, they say it's been the most since 2008. What happened in 2008? Barack Obama gets elected president, oversees one of the largest expansions of the federal government in recent American history. It actually kind of stayed flat under Donald Trump. Plus, we then had COVID. You saw an additional expansion under Joe Biden. So, of course, you're going to see a reduction right now when you're actually finally saying we're going to cut the size of government. And look, there's been a, unholy alliance between big government and big corporations for a long time. Sometimes corporations are trying to follow where the government's going. They're trying to read the trend. And so that's part of the reason why you're probably going to see a little bit of an outcry even from corporate America, because they're dependent on big government often. And that's the system that Donald Trump was elected to change. I mean, you look at the polling that Harry had talked about, the American people are with him on this. As long as the president's out there explaining it, they're going to give him a long leash to do exactly what they elect him to do, which is to turn upside down the system.
No, and Harry's numbers were telling, although they were before this report. And just to be clear, this report says that many of these jobs cuts are, in fact, from the government, but a lot are due to fear of trade wars, which aren't government jobs, fear of bankruptcies, actual bankruptcies. That's not anything to do with the government jobs cuts, and also otherwise throughout retail, big jobs cuts there. Bakari, I do want to ask you, because Matt brought up sort of the feeling about Elon Musk and what he's doing. The Republicans have told their members, according to the New York Times and others, to stop holding public town halls because of the feedback they're getting. This is from the Times. Representative Richard Hudson of North Carolina, the chairman of the House Republicans campaign arm, issued a stark message to the GOP rank and file: stop having in-person town halls with your constituents. The directive, relayed to lawmakers during their private weekly meeting in the basement of the Capitol, comes as the Republican town halls have devolved into angry shouting matches across the country. Your view?
Yeah, Representative Hudson is a coward, and I think that members who don't go out and meet with their constituents are displaying cowardice. And the fact is, look, this is what happens when you advocate your duty and your responsibility. I think that Republicans who got elected to the House and Senate majorities are now sitting on their hands and doing absolutely nothing, and allowing Doge and Elon Musk and his band of 25-year-olds run ramshot throughout the United States government. And it's just ironic to sit back and watch, because if we wanted to have, Matt and I could actually go in a room and have conversation about what precise cuts we should make to government so that it actually moves more efficiently. What they're doing now, Americans are not going to be pleased when farmers have to go to the USDA office and realize that the line is wrapped around the building because of asinine cuts. They're not going to like when they go to their federal Social Security building and realize that their checks are late. People are looking for their tax returns, but they're firing IRS agents. Americans are not going to like this, but hell, Congress isn't doing the job, so who cares?
Matt, it is interesting because Elon Musk did meet with House and Senate Republicans yesterday. And our reporting is he was told by Republicans, hey, you know, we kind of need a say in this. Rand Paul told him, if you want these cuts to be permanent, we have to vote on this. What are you hearing from elected Republicans, Matt, about how much involvement they want?
Well, the truth is they'd love to have a lot of involvement, but the problem is they hadn't acted for years, right? In their own base, Republican Party's base has said they want to see a decrease in the size of government. I saw it, you know, when I was in the first Trump administration, we proposed a budget reduction for our own office. Congress ended up giving more money than they did the year before because they're so reactive to those political pressures. And I think what you're going to see, though, and the reason why President Trump and Elon Musk and others are doing this the way they are, is because if you do it piecemeal, if you go out and you have a study and come out with your findings and you try to recommend these things, you're going to see so much pushback from whether it's public sector unions, whether it's the actual bureaucracy, what have you. The next thing you know, 4 years is up, you've made no progress, and then what was the point? They know they have to act quickly in order to try to enact some of the changes that Americans clearly are desperate to see right now. And I think Congress is going to go along with it at the end of the day. And not only that, they will probably make a lot of those cuts permanent in a serious way that they haven't done before.
Well, we'll see. And again, right now this morning, there is serious pushback from the stock market. Stock futures very much down. Investors very concerned with what they are seeing in this economy. Matt Mowers, Bakari Sellers, thanks to both of you.